Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to a new remotely recorded episode of Jake's Hot Takes. As always, I'm your lovely host, Jake McVey. I'm joined here by my co-host, Matthew Galgano. Matt, how are you feeling today?
I'm doing great. Got back to college this weekend, so did you. Oh, hey, we go to the same college. Nice.
Yeah, funny how that works, right? Very convenient, but that is not to be discussed right now. There's a lot more important things we need to
Very
focus
true.
on.
Very true.
First of all, Pete Carroll to the Raiders.
Pete Carroll to the Raiders.
Immediately, I'm thinking, what are the Raiders doing right now?
I actually completely disagree with that. I think this is a great move for the Raiders for where their franchise is at this moment.
I just think that the Raiders have a habit of falling into this mentality that one person can come in and really fix the team when really this team is very fundamentally broken on a lot of different levels. I mean, think about the recent acquisitions that this team has had that were supposed to, quote unquote, save the franchise or bring the team back from where they're at, and they didn't do anything. Khalil Mack, when he was drafted, he was touted as going to be the defensive anchor for a new era of defense for the Raiders, and that didn't turn out very well. Devontae Adams was supposed to work with Derek Carr and save the Raiders offense, but then, a year later, Derek Carr's not even on the team anymore. Antonio Pierce was going to establish the culture, and, he's out. And now Pete Carroll's coming in. I like Pete Carroll as a head coach. I think he did a lot of great things in his time in Seattle, but I just don't think that he's what this team needs right now.
Well, it's definitely no secret that the Raiders are probably one of the most mismanaged franchises in all of sports within the last like 25 years. There's no secret about that, but I think for what Pete Carroll means for this Raiders team and what they want him to do, he'll excel at that. I mean, they're going to draft a quarterback, whether it's Shadur Sanders, whether they get Cam Ward. They're going to draft a quarterback, and they're looking to get good play out of that quarterback. And signing Carroll is definitely going to do that. He made third round pick Russell Wilson into an all time great quarterback, probably the best quarterback the Seattle Seahawks have ever had. And he got good play out of Geno Smith for 2 seasons. So I think Carroll is a good locker room coach, and he should do a lot for a quarterback when they draft him to the Raiders.
That is a fair enough point, but my another big concern beyond that, another really big concern that I have for Carroll is his age. Carroll right now is the oldest head coach in the entire NFL, and that can come with a lot of complications. I never like to, you know, speculate on what somebody's going to do with their career. I mean, I guess I do it for a living, so, but it wouldn't surprise me if Pete Carroll takes his opportunity to jump. Pete Carroll pretty much always has an opportunity to jump ship should things turn bad. And I think that kind of dynamic is just not a great one to have, one where the head coach literally can just walk away from the situation at any given time. I mean, what's stopping Pete Carroll from, coaching the 2 seasons with the Raiders, them getting, 4 wins collectively over those 2 seasons, and then just retiring? And then the Raiders are stuck in exactly the same place as they were 2 years ago. You're putting a lot of eggs into the basket of a guy who, yes, his experience is very valuable, and yes, he's done a lot of great things with a lot of great players, but he's also coming to the end of his coaching career, whether you want to admit it or not.
The thing is that the Raiders are not a win now team. They're not really looking to win. All they're looking for is to get a quarterback and to get some development out of that quarterback. And I think within the next 2 years, if Carroll's able to do that with whoever they have at quarterback, it's got to be considered a success. Even if they're a 7 win team the next year, and then even like if they make it to 8 wins, that should be an overstanding success for this Raiders team because they're definitely one of the least talented teams in the league, especially offensively. I guess they have a couple good players defensively. They have Max Crosby, who is probably one of the best defenders in the league. But offensively, they've just been awful for the past couple of years, and this is a good move, getting like an all-time great offensive coach to coach their team.
Yeah, you said that the Raiders are not a win now team, and I completely agree with you, but I also think that Pete Carroll is a win now coach. I mean, realistically, do you think that it is in the Raiders' expectations to have the team develop and then contend for a Super Bowl under Pete Carroll? Like, do you think the intention is to keep him around long enough for a quarterback to fully develop and then actually start making runs?
Well, that's definitely the goal, but you gotta be real here. I mean, Pete Carroll's old, so what the Raiders should be looking for first and foremost is to develop a quarterback, and this is a good move for them no matter what.
Yeah, you keep on saying it's a good move for them no matter what. I think the Raiders have a history of situations that should be good moves no matter what, and then it always seems to manage to fall through for them. I'm just saying, even though this move looks really good on paper, we need to keep our expectations in check. And speaking of keeping in check, wow, those Eagles kept those Commanders in check last weekend.
Absolute domination.
Wow. Yeah.
Crazy.
Absurd. You want to hear an awesome stat?
Tell me.
Cowboys fans, cover your ears, but don't change the station. The Eagles had more rushing touchdowns against the Washington Commanders in the NFC Championship than the Dallas Cowboys had rushing touchdowns all season. They had 7,
Wow.
and the Cowboys only had 6 rushing touchdowns in the entire regular season. That is
Definitely did not expect that.
more touchdowns in one game played versus a team's total rushing touchdown total over a 17 game season. It was just absurd. Saquon got 3, Jalen Hurts got 3,
Who
and
got the 7th?
oh gosh, we were talking about him. I can't even remember
Big
his name. Will Shipley.
Will
Will
Shipley
Shipley,
got the
that's his
seventh
name.
touchdown. He looks
Yeah.
like Saquon when you see him on the field. He looks great.
You know what? I will not lie. He impressed me during the later half of that game. I know that the Commanders were pretty checked out, but he had a few good runs.
Why would they even bother having Kenneth Gainwell as the running back too? I don't understand. Just
Yeah.
Will Shipley has just proved himself in 2 snaps to be a better player than Kenneth Gainwell. At least a better runner.
And I mean, that's what Philly needs right now. Philly is living and dying by their ability to run the ball. And why wouldn't they? Saquon is just on an absurd warpath right now. It feels like nothing these teams throw at them can stop him. And granted, Washington does not have the best defense, especially the best rushing defense, but
Definitely not.
man, I mean, those were grown men. Those were professional athletes. That's the top 0.1% of the
Yeah.
sport. And Saquon was going out there and making them look like JUCO kids.
Yeah, Saquon was definitely the MVP for the Eagles. Uh, they were also picking on the Commanders cornerback, the rookie Mike Samerso, who was good all season, but they were definitely picking on him. He had a couple bad penalties during the game. But honestly, I would argue that the Eagles' defensive performance matters way more than Saquon's performance coming into the Super Bowl.
Oh, I wouldn't say it matters way more.
I
I
think it
mean,
matters way more.
look, the Eagles defense was impressive because it was a collection of players that managed to work really well in tandem. Saquon's performance was so impressive because it was one guy completely taking over and basically manually changing the tide of the game at his own will.
Well, yeah, we'll say Saquon's obviously a great player. He's obviously great for the Eagles. But this defense and its ability to perform is even the reason they're in the Super Bowl right now. In each of their playoff matchups so far, they've held their opponents under 24 points while facing probably some of the best offenses in the NFL. They faced the Rams, the Packers, and the Commanders, all holding them under 24 points. Their pass rush looks really great right now. Jalen Carter, he had a true breakout season, and he's really looking like they're the best defensive player right now.
Jordan Davis also had a really great
Very
game.
true.
Another big man in the
Yeah.
middle.
And Zach Bond, all pro. He was playing special teams earlier this season, and he's looked fantastic. Just
Yeah.
their ability to find these players, and this is just by far the most complete defense in the NFL. I
And
feel like.
well, okay, I wouldn't go that far, but before we move on, Braun is a depoy candidate, right?
Yeah, Bond is deep.
Yeah, he had quite an impressive season. I will
Yeah,
say I'm very impressed. But to go as far as to say that the Eagles have the best defense or
I think
even the
so.
most well-rounded defense,
I think so.
I don't know, man. I think there's a red and gold elephant in the room that we're not
No
talking about.
way.
I think there's a red and gold elephant that
No
really
way.
needs to start getting their
They don't have the
flowers.
They don't have the safety plays.
They do have the
They don't have
safety
the
plays.
safety.
Justin Reed is a great safety, all right? And I'm tired of the disrespect to that whole defensive back group. I get it. 2 of our cornerbacks are not very good and they get picked on a lot, but pretty much everyone else outside of the other, 5 or 6 guys that occupy that sphere, are very good at what they do. And I'm getting completely off topic. We're here to talk about the Eagles.
Yes, very true.
Stop distracting me with your outlandish claims.
But I mean, the Commanders, they just couldn't function under the constant pressure of Carter and the rest of that defensive line. Their offensive line literally stood no chance. They got every play got blown up. But what I think was most impressive about the Eagles was their ability to make the Commanders fumble the ball.
Yeah.
I mean, ball security was an issue for the Commanders, and I think that's just because these Eagles defensive players were really keen on getting these fumbles out.
Yeah, they were looking for it, and that is an underrated part of any defensive core. It's a really good skill for one guy to be able to come in and cause havoc and potentially force a fumble. But when all of your players are looking to do that at all times, it maximizes the potential for a turnover. And the turnover battle is one of the best ways to indicate who
Mhm.
is going to win the game. And I mean, look at it. Philly won the turnover battle, and they won the game by a lot. It's very difficult to win if you don't win that turnover battle. And in general, Washington looked like they were trying to push against an unstoppable force. They were able to keep their head above water in the beginning for about the first quarter, but it really did feel like this Eagles team imposed their will on this Washington team. They were looking pretty. Washington was looking pretty broken by the end of that game. They did not look happy to be there.
Very true, but this 2024 Washington Commanders team has to probably be one of the most overachieving teams in NFL history. They
Yeah,
can't feel nothing but happiness that their
yeah,
team made it this far.
yeah. If you're a Washington
Yeah,
fan, clap, give it up for the
they
front
got their
office. They
quarterback.
got
They
it.
got their franchise quarterback. They got their. I mean, I think Dan Quinn is a good coach after this year.
Yeah,
Why
I, I
not?
I think he's at the very least, Dan Quinn has earned himself at least 2 more years of coaching that Washington Commanders team.
100%.
And
Cliff Kingsbury is the coordinator.
yeah,
Looks great.
and I like what Dan Quinn is doing. I like that Dan Quinn is kind of taking influence from the Dan Campbell line of thinking,
Yeah.
who had originally taken their inspiration from the Brandon Staley line of thinking. I will never let the world forget that Brandon Staley is the inspiration for how Dan Campbell runs his offense. The
Very
the go
true.
for it on fourth down mentality, wear him down mentality. That was pioneered by Brandon Staley. He just wasn't very good at doing anything else, which is why he was such a bad coach. But that's besides the point. Dan Quinn is very good at what he does. I think he is great for Washington, and I think Washington fans should be completely ecstatic. They have their QB1, they got Jaden Daniels, they have their wide receiver one, they have Terry McLaurin, they have a running back, they have Brian Robinson, and Brian Robinson isn't the best running back, but he's very good, and he will be a serviceable piece for that team. At the very least, it's a useful part of an
Very
arsenal to
true.
have.
Yeah, and they were great in free agency. Bobby Wagner played very good for them this year.
Yeah, he
So
did.
Adam Peters, first year as the Commanders GM, he honestly killed it. He had a great draft. I really think this Commanders team is destined for good things,
Yeah.
and another decade of losing for the Cowboys. What it means for me.
Yeah, Cowboys fans can't be feeling good right now. I
Yeah,
mean, even beyond, I mean, the Giants are probably going to be good within the next like 3 years, right? Come on.
I
Hey,
wouldn't
come
say that.
on.
I wouldn't say
The
that.
Giants are going to be good in like 3 years.
Nope.
So, okay. But regardless, I mean, it's tough for the NFC East right now. I remember a few years ago when we were calling this division the NFC least because
Yep.
every team in that division was so bad, and they had the Washington football team led by Taylor Heineke just almost upsetting Brady in the year that he won the Super Bowl.
Yep.
Uh, Man, good times. But
Yes.
this is a very different NFC East, and I think it all just comes down to great front office work out of Howie Roseman and the Eagles, and who. I'm sorry, who was the Commanders GM? You just said
Adam
his name?
Peters.
Yeah, Peters did a phenomenal job with the Commanders this year. I think those guys are very important to the continued success of both of these teams. And I think we're going to see these two teams, Philadelphia and Washington, as a very high stakes rivalry for a lot of years to come.
Definitely. 100%.
The league needs that. The
It's
league
a good
needs to
shakeup.
the league needs to reinvigorate some of the rivalries that these teams have. You
Mhm.
think about like the really great rivalries in the NFL, and not a lot of them are really that
Active.
fierce anymore.
Yeah.
Like Packers and Bears, it's always fun because the Bears are always confident that they're going to beat the Packers, even though it's like what you've lost to them like 36 times in a row now.
Yeah.
It's like might be time to temper our expectations just a little bit, but
Yeah.
Bears fans never want to hear that out of me. But all right, when we get back, we are going to be talking about our thoughts on the Saquon MVP case because I think there might be one. And then we're going to be talking about the game of the year, Bills and Chiefs. Make sure you stay tuned for it right here, 94.5, 1220, WGNY News Talk Sports. This is Jake's Hot Takes. See you soon.
CDS Auto and Truck Repair is your 5-star one-stop shop for all your vehicle's needs from A to Z, offering full vehicle diagnostics. Towing is available, and they now offer fleet service. CDS Auto and Truck Repair. Call 845-563-9987. That's 845-563-9987. CDS Auto and Truck Repair, 2917 Route 9W, New Windsor.
Game day is here, and Adams Furniture Farms is your MVP for all the delicious game day eats. Score big with our hot bar. Tackle your hunger with our deli's lineup of subs, heroes, and sandwiches. Choose your side. Will it be creamy macaroni, traditional potato, or crisp coleslaw? And don't forget to grab a bag of Adams Farm Stand tortilla chips. Visit adamsfarms.com to check out our weekly flyer and to get ready to make your game day spread the champion of the day. Adams Furniture Farms, where every game day is a win.
Welcome back to Jake's Hot Takes. We're getting right back into the nonsense. I hope you enjoyed having a little break from the nonsense, but we're back. So, Matt, I'm going to ask you a very simple question.
Lay it on me.
Does Saquon Barkley have an MVP case?
Nope.
Wrong. You're incorrect.
No.
Okay.
Bad chance.
Okay. Look, I'm going to compare Saquon Barkley this year, his stats, to the stats of an MVP Adrian Peterson. All right?
Lay it on me.
So, Adrian Peterson had 345 carries, 2,005 yards, 13 touchdowns, and 5.8 yards per carry. That sounds like an MVP caliber season, right?
Yeah, sure.
Well, I just lied to you. Those are actually Saquon Barkley's stats from this year. Adrian Peterson only barely beat Lamar out in 3 of those 4 main statistics. He had 3 more carries, 92 more rushing yards, 1 less touchdown, and averaged 0.2 more yards per carry. I mean, Saquon this year has just been absolutely absurd. And you look at the most recent running back MVP season, and the stats are close.
It's true, the stats are close, and not denying Saquon had a great season, one of the best seasons of all time for a running back. But it's just a straight up fact that, in relative to how valuable Saquon is to the Eagles, both Josh Allen and Lamar, with their regular seasons, they're more valuable to their respective teams than Saquon is to the Eagles.
The thing I'll say about that is this is a very difficult conversation to navigate because you want to be able to give Saquon the credit he deserves while also not devaluing what Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson have done for their respective teams. But production-wise, Allen and Lamar had great years, but it really was nothing special. It really wasn't anything that is going to go down in the history books as a really all-time great season. So I understand the argument that, yeah, sure, technically Lamar and Allen have done, quote unquote, done more for their team just by the nature of being the head of the offense. They channel the entire offense and flow of the game through themselves. But Saquon Barkley has done something this year that is just so special. And I feel like it is just an insane disservice to not even consider him as an MVP finalist. Honestly, if you look at the stats, I might even say that he has a stronger argument than Josh Allen at this point.
You know what? You're right. He should be awarded for this, and he will be as the Offensive Player of the Year, not the MVP.
Since
like both Allen and Lamar, they just have a stronger case. That's what it is. The Eagles have a lot of talent outside Barkley on both sides of the ball that contribute to wins, contribute to their winning season, winning regular season. Saquon is their best player. There's no doubt about that. But he's just not anywhere near as valuable as Allen and Lamar.
Yeah, but an all-star cast means a lot less for running backs, and an all-star cast does a lot less to hurt a running back's MVP case as opposed to a quarterback. Because it's not like Saquon Barkley is having to interact and rely on everyone else on the field necessarily. He really only needs to rely on the few offensive linemen that are responsible for laying their blocks and Jalen Hurts' ability to hand off the ball, which, I'm your average Joe. I'm not quite the athlete Jalen Hurts is, but I'm confident in my ability to hand off Saquon Barkley the ball. Literally anyone can do that. But it's not like Josh Allen or Lamar Jackson where they're throwing to Pro Bowl caliber guys or really high caliber guys. Saquon is pretty much just relying on his own two legs out there to really get it done. And he went out there and he got it done, man.
It's true. He had a great season. I'm not denying that. But Saquon does have an all-star offensive line. His offensive linemen are probably some of the best in the league across all teams. Probably not the best offensive line in the league, but definitely close.
They're up there.
This is what I'm saying. If you take Tyrone Tracy from the Giants and you put him on the Eagles, he's having a similar season to what Saquon had this time.
Okay, what are we talking about here?
That's what I'm saying. Like,
I got to turn down my microphone for a second because what are we talking about here?
If you're taking Tyrone Tracy from the Giants and putting him on the Eagles and taking Saquon back to the Giants, Tyrone Tracy is having a similar season than Saquon this season. He's not going to be as good, but it'll be a similar season.
I mean this with all due respect, all right? What is wrong with you, man?
It's true.
Are you serious?
It's true.
We saw Saquon running behind that Giants offensive line.
And he wasn't that good.
And he was significantly better than Tyrone Tracy.
I'm not saying that Saquon isn't a significantly better player than Tyrone Tracy, but I'm trying to prove the fact that the running back is more of a plug-and-play position than a quarterback is.
I think there are only a handful of running backs in the all-time conversation where if you put them behind this Eagles offensive line, they have a year as good as Saquon. There are only a few running backs throughout the entire history of the NFL that are capable of performing a season this good. I don't care how good your offensive line is. A good offensive line is very important to a running back, but it is not the only factor. Saquon's shiftiness and his power and his speed are what make him a great player. It's not the offensive line.
He is the best running back in the league right now.
I would say he even has an argument for the best running back of the generation right now.
He is one of the best running backs of all time. The most talented running backs of all time.
Derrick Henry in there, it slows me down just a little bit, just because Derrick Henry has the accolades right now.
Yeah.
I don't think I think you're doing so much of a disservice to Saquon's season right now. I can't believe you would say something like that. Tyrone Tracy, really?
Yeah,
I love Tyrone Tracy.
I like Tyrone Tracy.
He's great. He is not performing that good behind that Eagles offensive line.
I think it's similar. I think he's at least having like a 1,400 yard season.
No, I need to.
If they're running Tyrone Tracy as much as they ran Saquon this year, they're giving that many chances, he's going to put up similar numbers.
It's a stamina thing too. Saquon Barkley is running the ball 20, 21 times in a game. Not every running back can keep up with that speed. I mean, look at James Cook during a playoff game. He had to take plays off because he couldn't physically keep up with it, man. That physicality, that stamina, that killer instinct that Saquon has, man. It's just different than every other player in the league right now.
True.
And not to mention that he has a better storyline than Josh Allen or Lamar Jackson right now. He was on a completely dysfunctional franchise for the first 6 years of his career, his physical prime, and he was still pretty good and people still liked him. And then he goes to a contender and he finally has the right pieces and he finally has the right coaching and he finally has a guy that can hand the ball off to him just right. And he puts on a masterclass of a running back season.
Well, what do you think? This is the NBA. They don't decide MVPs off storylines in the NFL that much.
Yeah, but I think it's an important factor that this is a guy who has literally been in the mud for so many seasons, and he's crawled his way out of it now and done something that very few NFL players could do, let alone have done.
Very true.
I just think it's absurd that and you know what? I'm fired up right now. I'm fired up. And you know what I like talking about when I'm fired up?
Tell me.
My Kansas City Chiefs, baby.
Of course. Why wouldn't you?
They got it done again.
They got it done.
Was
there ever any doubt?
Yes. There was a little bit of doubt at a few points.
I never doubted it.
You and me see the Chiefs in a very different light.
I never thought they would lose that game.
Oh man,
not
dude.
Once did I think they would lose.
There were a few times where I was like, oh man, this is really not going to be good. I never thought to myself like we're going to lose, but I did think to myself on several occasions, man, this is really not good. I think this was the game of the year.
This was a great
That's
game.
my
It
hot
was a
take.
fantastic game.
It was phenomenal.
Yeah, definitely.
And to all my Bills fans out there listening, Josh Allen definitely did not get that first down. I'm sorry. I watched that
No,
clip from every angle there
I don't
is,
think he did.
and he did not get that first down. You have to be crazy. At the very least, it's inconclusive.
Yeah, I mean,
At
the
the
thing about
very
that
least.
is that there was the questionable spot call, and there was the questionable ruling on the worthy catch. But what people need to realize is that the Bills got so many breaks
Yeah.
in this game. They fumbled the ball like 4 separate
Yeah.
times, and they got it each time.
And-
That's luck. They played so sloppy in the second half.
Yeah.
And Josh was throwing up so many 50-50 balls, not even 50-50 balls. He was just throwing stuff up and seeing if it got caught, and it should have been picked. There were probably like 2 dropped interceptions
Yeah.
from the Chiefs secondary, and that's lucky. I think the Bills got many more breaks than the Chiefs did in this game.
Yeah. And not to mention the baffling play calling out of Joe Brady and Sean McDermott. Like, you see what James Cook is doing to this defense, right? You see that he's chopping it up every single play.
Yeah,
7 yards, 8 yards, 9 yards, just taking chunks out of this defense, play in and play out.
Mhm.
And for some reason, they just refuse to capitalize on that. Not to mention the fact that they only use Josh Allen as a rushing threat in short yardage
yeah.
situations.
They never really tried to rely on his legs at all.
Yeah, and usually the most dangerous plays when you're playing the Bills are the plays where Josh Allen gets loose, and then you have to deal with scrambling and containing this 250-pound, 6'3", testosteroned up lunatic running with a football that's ready to either run through you or jump over you.
Yeah.
It's like, why would you not use that to your advantage more?
Yeah, I don't quite understand that. I think the biggest thing about this game is Josh played well. I'm saying he threw a lot of 50-50 balls. He did, but despite that, he had a good game. He played pretty well. And I think even on the final offensive play for the Bills in that game, when it was 4th and 5 and Steve Spagnuolo brought the house on that Bills offensive line, is crumbling around him, and Josh chucked it up, and Kincaid still should have caught it.
Yeah.
As he still dropped the ball.
Yeah.
So that even in itself was a break, and that could have changed the entire tide of the game or the season for the Bills. So I don't think that it's accurate for anyone to say that the spot call or the calling on the worthy catch really stopped the Bills from winning this game. I think it was themselves. They made too many mistakes.
Totally.
They were playing sloppy, and eventually it caught up to them.
Yeah. Not to mention, they left 4 points on the board with failed 2-point conversions. I understand when you're playing from behind, there's kind of that sense of urgency, but this was a play calling decision that literally lost them the game. They missed 2-point conversions. If they had those 2 extra points, that game would have been completely different because Kansas City would have been playing for a lead and not for a tie, not for a lead tie. It would have just changed the entire situation. And
Yep.
I'm sure, looking back on it, Sean McDermott and Josh Allen are wishing that they had just gone and taken those extra point kicks because, Lord, they needed them. They needed them. They went for 4th down. Sean McDermott was far too aggressive with this game. He went for it on 4th down too many times. You can only go for it on 4th down so many times and expect to continue to be successful. And that's exactly what happened. You can't go for it on 4th down every single time and just expect that it's going to work. Eventually, the defense is going to wise up and get the stop. And that's exactly what Kansas City did. They performed in that big moment,
Yeah.
It was 1 yard. That's all they had to get, and they couldn't quite pull it out.
Yeah, that's exactly what I think about it too. Um, I think the Bills they definitely played very sloppy in this game, and it caught that like you said it caught up to them.
Yeah, and just a few things for Kansas City that I want to highlight because I'm a nerd for this team. Mike Dana had a phenomenal game. He's been a lifelong Kansas City Chief, always kind of been in the background, never really outstanding enough to kind of get his name outside of Kansas City. But man, he's been so solid, and we were missing him due to injury for a good chunk of the season, and he came out there and he just killed it. He had such a good game. Not to mention Xavier Worthy. easily the wide receiver one of this Kansas City team. I think he's easily the best receiving target that Mahomes has. And him and Rashee Rice next season are going to be so dangerous. It just, oh man, oh my goodness. It brings me joy to see. It brings me joy to see. Who were some standout players from your side of things, Matt?
I would say definitely Josh Allen, of course, standout player. Obviously, Patrick Mahomes, standout player. I thought one of the biggest things that they did in the game of the Chiefs is they called that QB draw for Patrick Mahomes like three separate times, and each time it worked like a charm.
Yeah.
It's just they're so concerned about his arm, and then when he just gets out of the pocket and runs, they can't. They have no one to stop it.
Yeah, I never thought I'd see the day where Mahomes outrushed Josh Allen in a playoff game.
Yeah, and I was wondering why don't the Bills try to do that?
Yeah.
I felt like they could have done that. Maybe the Bills just didn't have the personnel
Yeah,
to
I-
take care of it.
that's the thing. I feel like they did though. I mean, Keon Coleman is a phenomenal blocking wide receiver. He's a big body. He can lay a
Yeah.
hit. They have Dawson. Is Dawson Knox still on that team?
Yes, he's on.
They got Dawson Knox, who's a great blocking tight end. They got Dalton Kincaid, who's a tight end, should be good at blocking. I'm
Mhm.
not sure he's the best at it, but still, just a body to get out there. And it's not like their offensive line is terrible.
Their
They
offensive line is
definitely,
pretty good.
yeah, they definitely could have set something up in that situation, but it was just it really came down to coaching. Big Red proved once again why this is the method for Kansas City.
Hmm.
And I mean, that's pretty much the long and short of it. It's tough because you ask yourself the question, will Allen and the Bills ever get over this hump and make it to a Super Bowl? And don't answer that question because we're going to be answering it, the both of us, after the break. Jake's Hot Takes. Stay tuned.
Game day is here, and Adams Furaker Farms is your MVP for all the delicious game day eats. Score big with our hot bar. Tackle your hunger with our deli's lineup of subs, heroes, and sandwiches. Choose your side. Will it be creamy macaroni, traditional potato, or crisp coleslaw? And don't forget to grab a bag of Adams Farm Stand tortilla chips. Visit adamsfarms.com to check out our weekly flyer and to get ready to make your game day spread the champion of the day. Adams Furaker Farms, where every game day is a win.
Welcome back to Jake's Hot Takes, ladies and gentlemen. I am your host, the ever charismatic Jake McVey. We got Matt too. Let's jump right into it. So this game is a tragedy for the Bills and Josh Allen. It is their fourth time in the last 5 years having their season ended by Mahomes. And I think that it is time to start asking the fair question, and that is, will Josh Allen ever get over the hump? What do you think?
I think he will eventually. Um, I think he's gotten the short end of the stick a lot of times, and it's not because of him. It's because of his team letting him down. And I think eventually the Bills will get the talent on their roster to just inevitably not win a Super Bowl, but just go to a Super Bowl. We will see though. I don't think the Chiefs are bound to be dominant forever. We saw this with the Patriots dynasty, is that they were good for the first like 5 years of their dynasty, and they cooled off for a while, and then they became hot again to become a dynasty again. I think a similar thing will happen with the Chiefs. I mean, Travis Kelce's not going to be there for too much longer. Honestly, Andy Reid's not going to be there for too much longer, I don't think. So I think the Chiefs are bound to cool off eventually, and Allen's time is only coming. I mean, he's still young. He still has a lot of game ahead of him, so we will see how this goes.
Yeah, I don't know. I think that even just beyond Kansas City being the most dominant force, the AFC is an incredibly hostile ecosystem right now.
Yeah.
I mean, think about all the teams that are really on the cusp of becoming really great teams that could make a deep run in the playoffs. Off the top of my head, Houston is absolutely on the cusp. LA has a new coach, and Herbert didn't look great this season. He had a bit of a down year, but still an immensely talented player. And then Denver is I mean, they overachieved like crazy this year, and it looks like the future is only getting brighter for them.
Mm-hmm.
Not to mention Baltimore is here right now as easily a top 3 team in the AFC behind Kansas City and Buffalo themselves. And Cincinnati is always a wild card. They are unpredictable,
True.
and I could still see this team having it in them to go and make something crazy happen. Of course, if they fire Zach Taylor and fire everyone on their defense except for Trey Hendrickson. But I just think that there's way too much talent in the NFC or in the AFC right now for me to really be confident and say yes, Josh Allen will make it to a Super Bowl one day.
Yeah.
I mean, this team under Sean McDermott is almost like impossibly failing. This Buffalo team has had all the pieces they've needed for the last 5 years to go and make a run at the Super Bowl, and every year they come up short. And if last year was their best opportunity to beat Kansas City and they didn't do it, then the year before that was their best opportunity at Kansas City and they didn't do it. It just I'm seriously doubting this Buffalo team's ability to make it to a Super Bowl. And that's not a knock on Allen. Josh Allen is a phenomenal player. I'll sing Allen's praises up and down, but I think a combination of poor management in some cases, poor management when it matters, we'll say,
Hmm.
and because the Bills are pretty good at finding talent, poor management and poor coaching. As good as McDermott is, you can really feel his impact that he has on the game in the really big moments. I just don't see him having enough in him.
Yes, but the Bills really have had more postseason success than pretty much the entire league in recent years. Yes, they haven't made it to a Super Bowl, but just getting to the playoffs and getting multiple wins a couple times is a lot of postseason success. Not the success that the Bills fans want to see, but it's bound to go their way eventually. Josh Allen, really, he's only getting better. This was his best season to date, and I think when a lot of their receiving talent develops. Right now, this season for the Bills, they didn't really have a number one receiver. They had Khalil Shakir, who was their technical number one, but it's not like he's a wildly talented receiver or would be a standout wide receiver on any other team. He's a standout receiver because Josh Allen can get what he's strong at and get good production out of him, and also get good production out of a lot of other receivers on this offense. I feel like the Bills need to get a number one receiver like what they had with Diggs, but they the Bills have proven that they are able to home grow a lot of talent, especially defensively, but also offensively they can home grow a lot of talent. So I think it's only a matter of time before the Bills are able to draft a receiver that Allen has an instant connection with and can rely on consistently and be a game changer because no receiver on this Bills team right now has that ability.
So you're saying right now that all the Bills need is a wide receiver, and they can make it to the Super Bowl next season?
Yeah,
They had
100%.
they had Stephon Diggs for so many years, and they had the number one defense in the league while they had Stephon Diggs. They had a top five defense for like 4 years straight, and Stephon Diggs. So what was different about those teams? Like why are we saying now that Allen needs a star wide receiver when he had a star wide receiver and he had a top five defense and he still didn't get it done?
Well, that was against the brunt of the Chiefs. I'm saying that when Allen's gotten the short end of the sticks in a lot of these matchups, and it's not to say that the Bills have been flawless in these matchups, but I feel like eventually the best way for them to go forward is to get a true standout receiver.
Okay, I'm gonna pivot this conversation a little bit because I think this is an important conversation that we need to be having. Does Allen have the football IQ to win a Super Bowl?
Yes,
Because
100%.
it's not just enough to be a physically talented quarterback, which he is undeniably, but you look at the film from this recent game against Kansas City, and he was getting fooled by everything Spagnuolo set up. Like Spagnuolo was disguising blitz packages and coverages and things like that. And Allen was falling for him hook, line, and sinker, and he was putting the ball in danger on several occasions. Even on the first drive, he almost threw it was a missed hand away from an interception. And I mean, if you look into the film and what Spagnuolo's intention was on any given play, he really was playing Allen like a fiddle pretty much all night.
Yeah, I mean, Allen, the Chiefs' defense and Spagnuolo was definitely outplaying Allen in this matchup, but he does, I would say, have one of the better football IQs in the league to be such a successful quarterback that he is, to have the season he had. I mean, he's had interception problems in the past, but this year he really did not have that. He had 28 touchdowns to only six interceptions this year, which is by far the lowest of his career. So I think that they're trusting Josh Allen more with the ball, and they're letting him develop these receivers. It's like the same approach that Kansas City is taking with their receivers, where they're having a bunch of like B plus guys that have won A plus guy. But I think Allen really needs that A plus receiver to really be a contender.
Yeah, I just worry that the overlap between Allen's peak as an athlete and Allen's peak in the IQ department aren't going to overlap for as long as Bills fans are going to want to, resulting in a guy who early in his career had all the physicals but none of the brains, and then a guy later in his career, as his body starts breaking down, has the brains but can't quite get it done like he used to on the physical side of it things. Just something to consider, just something I thought I'd ask. Now let's get on to some much more important hypotheticals, which is uh, this Kansas City Chiefs team. They are on the cusp of history. They have now made it further than closer to a three-peat than any team in NFL history has ever made it.
Yeah.
And I think that this might be, when it comes to the legacies of the players involved, I think that this is one of the most important Super Bowls we have ever seen.
It's true, definitely. This Super Bowl has a lot of meaning in terms of what the record books will look like and what we consider as an all-time great. What do you think is the biggest consideration for the Super Bowl, the result of it?
So I actually have a few. I actually have a few bullet points. And we'll address them one by one because there's no need to rush into this.
Mm-hmm.
First of all, if Kansas City wins this Super Bowl, Mahomes is the greatest quarterback of all time. Simple as.
I don't know.
We've
It's kind
seen
of
the
difficult
film.
to say.
We've seen the film. He has one of the three best quarterback seasons of all time with his first MVP season. In 7 years of starting, 8 years in the league, his earliest finish to a season has been overtime in the AFC Championship game.
Mm-hmm.
That's something not even Brady could do. If he goes for 3, that's something not even Brady could do. I mean, really, the Brady has dominated the GOAT conversation because he's been able to do things that other players just haven't been able to do. And that's the criteria for being the GOAT, is being able to do something that players haven't done. So maybe if Mahomes wins the Super Bowl, he's not the GOAT immediately, but all he needs is the longevity stats. All he needs to do is get up in the top 7, top 8 all-time passing yards, top 7, top 8 all-time passing touchdowns, and he is absolutely in that GOAT status.
I think the thing about Mahomes and his potential argument for being the GOAT is that you said already, the longevity, he won't have that. But I think the biggest thing that is the staple to Tom Brady's GOAT argument is that Tampa Bay season. He went to a new team and proved he could do it on a new team that historically wasn't a good team. And on top of that, they have that head-to-head matchup in the Super Bowl, and it really wasn't even a close matchup. So I think when it's all said and done, if Mahomes has like 9 Super Bowls, then that's one thing. If Mahomes even has 7 Super Bowls in the three-peat, I would say he's better than Brady. But with that head-to-head matchup, it's so hard to say.
The head-to-head matchup.
It's the head-to-head matchup in the Super Bowl. It's so hard to say that Mahomes is a greater quarterback than Brady.
Do you remember that play in the Super Bowl when Brady juked Mahomes out of his socks and ran it all the way for a touchdown? Neither do I.
Yeah.
These aren't comparable situations. Brady's team for that Tampa Bay Super Bowl was stacked with a capital S. Even more so than that Chiefs team, which is pretty absurd to say because that stretch of time between Mahomes' first MVP and the Tampa Bay Super Bowl loss, that Chiefs team was insanely stacked, especially on the offensive side of the ball. There's no denying that, but I hate the head-to-head argument because it doesn't mean anything, We're talking accolades, we're talking achievements. It doesn't matter if they go head-to-head. This isn't basketball. It's not like we watched Mahomes guard Brady and failed. And you watch that Super Bowl, Mahomes did everything he could to make that to will that team to a victory. It was a powerful performance out of him because even though nothing happened, he was out there putting his all into it every single play. And I just think the head-to-head argument is so poor.
But at the end of the day, it still does hold some weight to how you compare these two players. And when it's all said and done, when if Mahomes has a three-peat, Mahomes has a significant argument against Brady, it has to be brought up in that context.
I don't think it does.
I think it has to.
I don't think it does.
This isn't like, well, originally Bill Russell was the GOAT of basketball, and then it's Jordan, and then it's LeBron, but they all played in different eras. These are two of the greatest quarterbacks to ever play in in the sport of football, and they happen to play at the same era, and they happen to play in the Super Bowl at the same era on the biggest stage, and where it mattered is Brady won, and people are going to look at that when it
Yeah,
comes
but
to it.
you got to remember the only time those two guys even had a chance to be face to face with each other in that Super Bowl was when they were shaking hands at the end of the game.
Yeah.
They didn't face
But
each
then
other.
why? But then why are people saying all the time that uh, Allen can't beat Mahomes? Allen can't beat Mahomes.
Well, that's just a conversation about the Bills being unable to beat the Chiefs. I mean,
Yeah.
there's more to it. Again, Allen is not being beaten by Mahomes. Mahomes is scoring more points, and Allen is being beaten by the defense.
But then Mahomes wasn't able to beat Brady in the AFC Championship or in the Super Bowl.
I mean, all right. I just think that the head-to-head argument is very poor. It's trying to boil down a player's entire legacy into
That's true.
one or two matchups.
But
And
I'm saying that
I just don't think that's
it's
fun.
a pretty rare occurrence where two of the greatest of all time at the sports play in the same era. And the fact that they've faced in the playoffs in high stakes scenarios before, and Brady has come up on top both times, it has to be considered when you're talking about either of them for the greatest of all time.
All right. I guess I just got to let you have that. Anyway, we don't have a lot of time left, so I'm going to go through these real quick. Travis Kelce, already the greatest tight end of all time, just adding to the legacy at this point. If you think that Rob Gronkowski is the greatest tight end of all time, let me remind you, Rob Gronkowski's prime was as long as Todd Gurley's. Travis Kelce's prime was as long
Kelce
as
is the
Gronk's
greatest.
entire career.
He's already the GOAT tight end.
He's the greatest tight end of all time. I think Andy Reid becomes the greatest head coach of all time.
I think so.
Just
with a three-peat.
a
Why not?
complete offensive mastermind, just been at the top of the game for so long.
Yeah.
The Chiefs become the greatest dynasty of all time. They did again, they did what Brady could never do, 3 in 3 years. And then they have the greatest 3-year, 5-year, and 7-year stretch by a team ever. And the Chiefs, as a franchise, easily step into the top 3 or top 4 franchises in NFL history. Just because they have a lot of their success front-loaded in recent times. You know, a team like the Steelers or the Packers have had sustained success for a very long time.
The Chiefs had very early success, and then recently they've been great.
Yeah, but they did. I mean, it's hard to put them as the greatest franchise in the NFL, even though they have an achievement that no other franchise has, just because they really did suck it up for like 50 years.
Yeah.
But when we get back, we are going to be talking about the current Super Bowl matchup and our predictions on what's going to happen. I know it's a little early, but we'll talk about it once or twice before the big game happens. So make sure you stay tuned. Jake's Hot Takes.
Thinking about remodeling your kitchen or bath? Wayne's Way Wholesale Cabinets has a great selection of all wood cabinets in the styles and colors to make your remodeling dreams come to life. Go to wayneswaycabinets.com for more info. Wayne's Way Cabinets, 1829 South Road, Wappingers Falls. Call 845-280-0880. Stop by and talk to Wayne today. You'll be glad you did.
Welcome back to Jake's Hot Takes. Oh, wow. And we have, for the second time in the last 3 years, a Chiefs and Eagles Super Bowl matchup. It seems like Kansas City loves playing teams that they've already beaten in the Super Bowl.
I was just thinking about that, how they played the 49ers twice and the Eagles twice.
Yeah, it's silly, but this is going to be a big game because this Eagles team is much different than the Eagles team that they played a couple of years ago. I mean, who even was the running back for that Eagles team that they
Miles
played?
Sanders.
Miles Sanders.
Panthers legend, who's probably recorded like 6 rushing yards since being on the Panthers.
He's another guy who's in like the DeAndre Swift category where he tricked everyone into thinking he was a top 10 back, but that's neither here nor there. This matchup is going to be huge. We're not talking about the past, we're talking about the present.
Yes.
This matchup is going to be huge because of one man in green, and that is Jalen Hurts. No, I'm joking.
Saquon.
Yeah, it's going to be Saquon.
The big thing is that if James Cook was such a problem for this Chiefs team, what are they going to do about Saquon?
Well, that is the obvious question, but I don't really have an answer for that. I mean, Saquon is an unstoppable force, but you know what? They say the same thing about Derrick Henry, and Kansas City notoriously is pretty good at containing Derrick Henry, especially in recent years. I just think that Spagnuolo is such an incredible defensive coordinator that he's going to be able to come up with something to at least slow Saquon down, you know? Realistically, if you hold Saquon to less than 100 yards and 1 touchdown, you've succeeded in putting your team in the best
Yeah.
situation to win. Saquon is a guy that can so easily avalanche a game in the Eagles' favor just because once he starts getting hot, it is difficult. He's
Yeah.
just going to keep on running it down your throat, keep making big plays, keep making big jukes. You can't let him get hot like that. So I think Kansas City can make some concessions and let up a play here and there, like a 8 or 9 yard gain here or there, as long as they don't allow Saquon to really get the ball rolling.
Yeah. I mean, this is the game that you bring Saquon Barkley to your team for. They are not going to sustain him in any way. They want him to eat. So that's the thing about this team is that I think that the Eagles have a better O line than the Bills, and there's going to be similar rushing assignments for the quarterback and the running back, the quarterback and the running back, because similar to the Bills, the Eagles also have a mobile quarterback, so that's also going to open up some lanes for Saquon. It's just Saquon's going to be a huge problem for the Chiefs in this game, I feel like.
Yeah, and I mean, it's only natural, but I mean, you take a look at Kansas City's front four, and they actually have a pretty good run stopping front four in the form of Mike Dana, very fast, very aggressive player. George Karlaftis, great high motor guy. Tershawn Wharton is just big. You're just not getting through him. He's massive. He's a mountain of a human being. And Chris Jones, of course, leading the team. I think Chris Jones is so important for this defensive front four. He sets the tone for them so well. You can see when he is kind of down in terms of production and the rest of the team is up. He really does a great job of keeping that momentum going, and he comes up big in big moments. But as much as I praise the Chiefs' run stopping core, at the same time, I just can't help but think to myself, like, is it going to be enough?
Yeah. I don't know. I honestly, I think I'm going to take the Eagles in this matchup
Oh,
because of this matchup with Saquon. If James Cook was able to eat, Saquon's going to be an absolute disaster for this Chiefs defense, honestly.
yeah, but I mean, it's not like Kansas City doesn't have some really favorable matchups. I mean, Philadelphia does not have an incredible defensive back core. Chauncey Gardner-Johnson will probably get picked on a lot this game just because,
Probably.
he's not very good. Darius Slay, too. Two guys that were really good in the past, but this year both of them have just been down. They haven't been very good at
They've
all.
been decent though. I mean, the Eagles' safety play is definitely where it's at. They have Cooper DeJean playing at safety a lot. And they have CJ Gardner Johnson also playing at safety sometimes. But I think that this Eagles defense is actually very complete, and I'm interested to see who the Chiefs actually decide they're going to pick on in this game. Um, I'd expect to see they try to rush the ball with Kareem Hunt a lot. I feel like Pacheco in these playoffs has just been an absolute non-factor
Yeah, he
for the
has.
Chiefs.
But we kind of knew that going in. At least Chiefs fans kind of knew that going in, that Kareem Hunt was going to be getting most of the
Mhm.
looks. I mean, his patience, his ability to weave and bob through defenders, it's just a lot more useful in these playoff situations as opposed to a guy like Pacheco whose brand is just running through a guy over and over and
Mhm.
over again. I mean, in the playoffs, guys are not going to get discouraged as easily. They're not going to get gassed as easily. I mean, this is the moment. So, the adrenaline is pumping, and sometimes running through a guy's face over and over is not the right move. Sometimes you just need a guy that's a little more shifty, a little more patient, can find the hole and then hit with a burst of acceleration. And that's Kareem Hunt. And
Yeah.
I mean, Kansas City does have a nice little trifecta of running backs. They got Kareem Hunt, very good patient and gap finding back. They got Isaiah Pacheco, a real power back. And then Samanje Pirine, who's a great receiving back. I mean, he had the game sealing play against Buffalo after being a complete non factor the entire
Yeah,
game. So,
true.
I mean,
Bengals legend Samaje Perine.
uh, playoff or Super Bowl pass dropper, Samanje Pirine, right? Didn't he drop that last ball that Burrow threw
I have
when he
no
was getting
idea.
sacked by Donald? I don't
I
know.
have no idea.
Anyway, moving on. I just think that the thing with Kansas City is Kansas City has much better average weapons, but the peak of Philadelphia's weapons are very hard to counter.
Yeah.
Kansas City has like 7 or 8 guys that can all fill their role very well, but AJ Brown and Saquon Barkley are two guys who, especially AJ Brown, Saquon will still produce no matter what, but especially AJ Brown, if you let him get hot, things are going to get really ugly for you
Yeah,
really
I mean,
fast.
he's a physical specimen, but
Yeah.
I think that's where the Chiefs will actually go after the Eagles a lot is the passing game. They're going to try to put a lot of pressure on Jalen Hurts because it's no secret that he's not the best passer in the league.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. I was gonna come up with something creative to say about that. I can't even. He's not one of the. He's a bad passer.
Yeah,
All right.
he's not that great.
He's a bad passer. I'm just gonna
He
come
had
out
a
and
good
say,
game against the Commanders, but that was a 55-7 game.
yeah.
So,
Honestly, for how many points they scored, I'm not even that impressed with the stat line.
yeah,
You know, need more yards, but I mean, Hurts. That's the thing with Hurts is that he can make a good throw when he needs to, but sometimes he also can't.
yeah,
You know, he's an incredibly inconsistent passer, but inconsistency combined with luck is indistinguishable from skill.
yeah,
Hertz might just go out there and get lucky and make the right throw over and over again. And that's something that you as a defense, you need to be prepared for, Momentum and game flow and rhythm are very real parts of the game. And I think disrupting Jalen Hurts' rhythm and his flow is going to be very beneficial for the Chiefs because it will kind of remove, not fully remove, but partially remove the passing game as a threat.
yeah. Do you think that this is going to be a low-scoring game, a high-scoring?
No, this is going to be a high-scoring
It's
game.
going to be high-scoring like last time?
Yeah. I would not be surprised if we see over 80 combined points
Really?
out of both of these teams. I mean, here's my question. Can that Chiefs defense stop Saquon?
No.
Can that Eagles offense stop the Chiefs offensive engine? Or can that Eagles defense stop the Chiefs offensive engine?
Not that much, no.
So
They have too many answers at receiver, I think.
sounds like it's going to be a high-scoring game.
High-scoring game. I hope it's a high-scoring game.
I would love to see some big plays out of D-Hop, who has been very quiet.
Yeah, I was
throughout
just
these
going to say
playoffs.
D-Hop. He's been very quiet, but I'd like to see more from him.
Yeah, I'm excited to see how some of Philly's younger core is going to put together. Some of these guys, it's their first shot getting at a Super Bowl. Some of these guys, it's their second shot. And, Jalen Hurts, who now has more Super Bowl appearances than Aaron Rodgers. A.J. Brown and Devonta Smith, big parts of that team that are coming back for a chance at revenge. But we're just going to have to see how it all plays out.
You want to know a stat that I saw the other day?
Yeah, tell me
So
real quick.
Now, A.J. Brown now has, since he's been traded to the Titans, A.J. Brown is traded from the Titans. A.J. Brown now has more Super Bowl appearances with the Eagles than Treylon Burks does touchdowns. He has more Super Bowl appearances than
Oh, man, that is
What a
hilarious.
deal.
That is hilarious.
Howie Roseman is a wizard, and I think though how he's been able to construct this Eagles
All right.
team is
I'm
great.
cutting you off. We got to end the show right now. Fantastic point, Matt, but that is going to do it for Jake's Hot Takes today. Tune in Sunday at noon. We're going to have another great episode lined up for you, so make sure you're tuning in. WGNY 94.5.